Tonight, Mark Carney's new international trade trip after new tariff rhetoric from the U.S.
Every country of the world that I know of is paying a price. What I'm saying is that Canada is paying the lowest price.
The complicated politics ahead of a free trade review. Warning from Canadian teachers, aggressive behaviors are creating a classroom crisis.
It's absolutely a trend across the country.
The violence in Mexico met with a surge in military patrols.
They saw the helicopter and they're acting not normal.
CBC News is in the air above the streets of Puerto Vallarta.
From CBC News, this is The National with Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault.
Thank you for joining us. Ahead of another trade mission abroad, the Canadian government says it still has, quote, many points of contact with the Trump administration and remains engaged with Washington. But it also acknowledges that right now, the U.S. prefers to charge a price to enter its market. The U.S. trade representative suggested to CBC News last night that whatever the future of trade with Canada may be, expect tariffs, the clearest signal yet that a decades-long free trade relationship is forever changed. And as Rafi Boudjikanian shows us, for an Ottawa looking to strengthen trade ties rather than weaken them, that means looking elsewhere.
The President of the United States!
Often a target of Donald Trump's rhetoric, Canada was only mentioned once in the U.S. President's marathon State of the Union speech.
But they beat a fantastic Canadian team in overtime, as everybody saw.
But after he lavished praise on the Olympic gold medal-winning U.S. hockey team, Trump's point man on trade took his own shot at Canada.
When we go to other countries and we make a deal with them, the other countries, they agree that we can have a tariff on them, that we can have a protective tariff to protect our industries as we try to reshore, and they open their markets to us. If Canada wants to agree that we can have some level of higher tariff on them while they open up their markets to us and things like dairy and other things, then that's a helpful conversation.
The clearest signal from the White House yet, it's looking to fundamentally rewrite the free trade deal between Canada, the U.S. and Mexico.
We're focused on having America First trade policy. We want the supply chains back here.
I think it is pretty well understood now in the world that the view of the American administration is that there'll be a price to access the American market. I think, every country of the world that I know of is paying a price. What I'm saying is that Canada is paying the lowest price.
Though Canada's relatively low tariff burden does not apply to some sectors like steel and aluminum, and the relief that does exist relies on the CUSMA free trade agreement that Washington vows to change.
What's the alternative? The alternative is to blow up the agreement and then have nothing. So that's the kind of calculation that every country has had to make. It won't be easy, and especially not politically.
Trump indeed told the world last night his tariff policy is here to stay, though not everyone on Parliament Hill was tuned in.
Good morning. Could you give us a reaction to the State of the Union address? State of the Union address? I didn't watch it.
Adrian, Carney seems to be sticking to his approach to Trump, shrugging off ongoing drama from Washington, trying to diversify this country's trade relationships. In fact, on Thursday, the Prime Minister is off on another international trip to India, Australia, and Japan.
Yes, but ultimately there will still be a trade deal to try to renew with the U.S. and Mexico.
That formal review among the three countries is set to start in July. Meanwhile, Canada says it's already conducted its separate internal review. Jameson Greer said again that the U.S. is not happy about provincial liquor stores banning their alcohol and those supply management protections.
Okay, thank you. That is Rafi Boudjikanian in Ottawa. So the Prime Minister heading to India, that certainly suggests a dramatic policy shift. Not long ago, Ottawa linked the Indian government to violence here in Canada. Diplomats were expelled, relations icy. Catherine Cullen joins us now. So Catherine, you're going to be going on that trip. What are officials saying?
Well, Adrian, they're saying that they're confident that the kind of violent activity we've seen in Canada in recent years linked to agents of the Indian government is not continuing, that if it was, Mark Carney wouldn't be going to India. Now, consider it's not just the killing of Sikh activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar that was linked to the Indian government. The RCMP also spoke out about violence and extortion, agents of the Indian government collecting information on people. But officials say now there is systematic engagement with India. These issues have been raised, and that they're confident those conversations have been productive.
Okay, so how is that assessment going over?
Well, some Sikh activists in Canada are totally rejecting it, calling it utterly false. Just in the past few days, one activist in BC says he got a warning that not only was his life in danger, but that his family was a target as well. And the World Sikh Organization says that is far from an isolated case.
This is a lived reality. And we're talking about monitoring, we're talking about threats to family members in India. It's a really chilling situation for members of my community.
Now, I did speak to India's High Commissioner to Canada last Friday. He said then that the two countries are collaborating on security, that India has concerns of its own, but that mature democracies work together to address these kinds of issues. Adrian?
All right, that is Catherine Cullen in Ottawa. Now, while the Prime Minister heads overseas again, the opposition Conservatives convened a closed-door caucus meeting. As Kate McKenna shows us, stung by last week's floor crossing and lagging in the polls, the party is trying to find a way forward.
After the floor crossers, is the Conservative Party united? Caucus united?
100%. At the first caucus meeting since losing a third MP to the Liberals, Conservatives are putting on a brave face.
We are a united caucus. It is wonderful to hear how much unity we have, and so that's something that is exciting and wonderful to hear.
At the same time, Alberta MP Matt Genereux attended his first Liberal caucus meeting, telling reporters no hard feelings.
I have no bad words to say about people on the other side of the aisle. Many of them are friends and deep friends, and a lot of them continue to text me. I hope that to remain friends.
But it was noticed on Tuesday when Genereux and his fellow defectors sat in the front row of question period, facing Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre while he grilled the Prime Minister.
What did you think of seeing Matt Genereux yesterday sitting right there at the front? Made me very sad.
Caucus meetings are secret, but recent Conservative struggles have become public. Last week, Poilievre distanced himself from MP Jamil Javani's comments on Breitbart News.
We are shooting ourselves in the foot if we continue this anti-America, hissy fit.
He speaks for himself, and I speak for the party.
Liberals claim they're in talks with other potential floor crossers, and then there's the polls.
Pierre Poilievre has gone from leading over the Liberals to being tied neck and neck in a real statistical dogfight between the two parties, to now not only chasing, but chasing by a wide mile.
Pollster Shachi Curl says part of that is Poilievre's failure to connect on the main issue driving voters, U.S. President Donald Trump.
There's a real gap and disconnect between how Canadians are feeling towards Washington and Trump and how Poilievre has struggled to respond to that.
On Thursday, Pierre Poilievre is going to try to change that with a speech at the Economic Club of Canada focused on U.S.-Canada relations.
And so, Kate, I understand you have some exclusive details on what it is he'll be saying in that speech.
Yeah, we can expect some new ideas from Poilievre, including a proposed all-party working group looking at the trade deal with the U.S. He'll also propose forcing companies that move Canadian IP offshore to repay any tax dollars they received. We can also expect the Conservative leader to reference Donald Trump directly after he didn't name the president in his speech at the party's convention last month.
Okay, interesting. We'll be watching. Thank you, Kate. That is Kate McKenna in Ottawa tonight. In Mexico right now, thousands of troops are in Puerto Vallarta after a deadly weekend triggered by the killing of a cartel boss. The Mexican Navy gave CBC News access to their patrol as authorities race to restore calm. Jorge Barrera takes us there.
Flying low over Puerto Vallarta, this Mexican Navy Black Hawk helicopter hunts for any sign of the criminal element that plunged this tourist hotspot into a cauldron of violence.
They saw the helicopter and they are acting not normal. They think that they act normal, but they are not acting normal. And they always have special trucks. They don't have plates in the trucks or in their vehicles.
This patrol is part of the Mexican government's security surge to return calm to the city and its state of Jalisco, which bore the brunt of attacks and blockades.
So I think the trust from the Mexican people, the Puerto Vallarta people, trust in the Mexican Navy.
Wow. The violence exploded Sunday after Mexican special forces killed El Mencho, the head of the Jalisco New Generation cartel, one of the strongest in the country. His death a major prize that even U.S. President Donald Trump tried to claim.
We've also taken down one of the most sinister cartel kingpins of all. You saw that?
Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum pushing back, saying U.S. intelligence helped, but her troops did the job.
Personalmente me siento ofendido.
But construction worker Jose Luis Morales says the military failed to protect the people of the city on Sunday.
Se ha demostrado que hay una debilidad.
This revealed a weakness in my country's defense, that it's vulnerable, he says. Not so, says Navy Captain Donavio, who led this ground patrol through the city. He says this is a safe place and security is guaranteed by the state. From above, Puerto Vallarta appears to have found its old rhythm, but on the ground, reminders the Mexican government is hoping to erase. Jorge Barrera, CBC News, Puerto Vallarta.
4 people are dead after Cuban soldiers opened fire on a Florida-registered speedboat, and a person connected to the boat has been detained inside Cuba. So this happened about 1.5 kilometers off the northern coast of the island. Cuba claims the occupants of the boat were Cubans living in the U.S. In a statement, Cuba's Interior Ministry said the speedboat's passengers opened fire on a Coast Guard vessel that approached them, forcing soldiers to shoot back. 6 other passengers were wounded. And Ottawa has announced $8 million to help Cuba with food security as it struggles with a growing humanitarian crisis following the U.S. oil embargo.
I have not discussed Canadian aid intentions with Secretary Rubio or the United States. This is Canadian foreign policy.
Cuba lost its main fuel source last month when the Trump administration took control of Venezuela's oil exports and threatened tariffs on countries that send oil to Cuba. The White House said Wednesday it is allowing Venezuelan oil to be sold to the island nation, but only to the private sector. Well, there is more fallout tonight for those with ties to Jeffrey Epstein. As Katie Nicholson explains, it comes amid several reports that the Department of Justice allegedly withheld records detailing allegations against Donald Trump.
It is indeed a turnaround for the ages.
Donald Trump talked about a lot of things during his 1 hour and 48-minute State of the Union address, but Jeffrey Epstein wasn't one of them, even as Epstein survivors sat before him in the chamber, even though he signed the release of the Epstein files into law last year. No mention in the chamber, but outside at a counter event.
A president who continues to hide portions of the Epstein files from both the survivors and the American people. When are they going to release the files?
Several news organizations are reporting the Department of Justice is withholding dozens of pages pertaining to a woman who made an unverified claim against Trump. The U.S. president has consistently denied any wrongdoing connected to his former friend. On X, the DOJ says it's looking into the matter, and if any document was improperly tagged in the review process, the department will publish it consistent with the law. Democrats are determined to keep pushing.
It's pretty clear that the Justice Department is stonewalling on a lot of the Epstein information.
This week, there have been more consequences for those whose names turned up in the files. Bill Gates apologized Tuesday to the staff at his foundation for his associations with the sex offender and admitted to 2 affairs. While Harvard University and its former president, Larry Summers, now fully parting ways after his emails with Epstein were made public. Former President Bill Clinton and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton are set to be questioned by a House committee Thursday and Friday.
I want to hear if he has any information about Jeffrey Epstein, about his associates, about co-conspirators, and certainly if he's familiar with any of the sort of how Jeffrey Epstein was able to accumulate so much wealth.
The Clintons have denied any wrongdoing connected to Epstein and have both called for the full release of the files. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Washington.
Investigators in Ottawa are trying to determine the cause of a fatal crash when an SUV careened into a group of pedestrians in front of a drop-in center.
A vehicle struck a building, and unfortunately 4 pedestrians were struck, and a man in his 70s has died as a result of his injuries.
3 other pedestrians and the driver are being treated for their injuries. The Capital City Mission drop-in center itself was damaged in the crash. Ottawa's fire service said the building will be reinforced by its specialized structural collapse team. Well, Canadian teachers say classroom violence has hit a crisis point. Many are dealing with daily incidents and warn it is hurting the education of every student. Kayla Hounsell now with their calls for stronger protections.
When the bell rings, classes are in and there's an expectation of safety. Increasingly, teachers say it isn't so.
It's the first thing you think of when you wake up in the morning. It's the last thing you think of when you go to bed at night.
She's not talking about extreme cases involving guns and loss of life, which are rare, but teachers say they're worried about everyday violent behavior.
I have seen anything from furniture being thrown across the room, hitting staff, hitting children.
Denise Kelly is still subbing after recently retiring as a full-time teacher in Nova Scotia, where more than 27,000 incidents of physical violence were reported in the last school year.
It's absolutely a trend across the country, and it's one of the things that's also driving teachers to leave the profession.
In a recent nationwide survey of its members, the Canadian Teachers Federation found 100% of elementary school teachers were significantly concerned about violence in their schools. In Ontario in 2025, teaching assistants filed more claims to take time off work as a result of workplace violence than any other profession. Elementary teachers came in fourth, and the number of claims elementary teachers filed in 2025 was more than 4 times that of 2021.
So we're talking about harassment and violence in the workplace that is extremely pervasive.
This researcher says the reason for the rise in violent behavior is largely due to funding cuts and students with greater needs, but also points to the affordability crisis.
We find ourselves in a perfect storm of major stressors across this country and decades worth of legislation and policies that have culminated in violence becoming a symptom of a school system that's not functioning properly.
I would have to say that technology is a big thing.
Kelly says kids who are parked in front of screens don't develop the same interpersonal skills and the ability to self-regulate. At the end of the day, she says classrooms are not safe, students are missing out on valuable instructional time, and something needs to change. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Halifax.
After several delays, there's some progress tonight on getting NASA's historic moon mission off the ground. The rocket has been moved off the launch pad to fix a helium flow issue. NASA says its new target launch date for the Artemis II mission is no earlier than April. For the first time in about 5 decades, astronauts, including Canadian Jeremy Hansen, will travel into deep space. And we're now learning that it was astronaut Mike Fink who suffered a health issue aboard the International Space Station last month, prompting NASA's first ever medical evacuation. A statement from the 58-year-old did not specify what the issue was, but he says he's doing well, and he credits his crewmates for their quick response that stabilized the situation. Well, there are renewed calls tonight to increase vaccination rates against the virus that causes cervical cancer.
Canada is currently facing a silent national health crisis.
Why experts say with more work, the cancer could be eliminated altogether. Next. Plus, new research looks at why humpback whales are getting entangled in fishing gear more often.
Got it.
Why rising ocean temperatures are putting the whales at risk. And later, a rare genetic mutation and one unique cat.
He has his regular 2 ears, and then in front of that, he has 2 smaller ears.
We're back in 2.
Crosby looks shaken up as he has gone to the bench in difficulty.
Yeah, so that was rough. An injury during Canada's Olympic quarterfinal match will keep Sidney Crosby off the ice for at least a month. The Pittsburgh Penguins confirming today their star center suffered a lower body injury. Crosby was hit twice last Wednesday in a span of 13 seconds and appeared to favor his knee when he hobbled off the ice. Well, there are new calls tonight for more action against cervical cancer. Peter Cowan explains why some doctors say Canada is losing ground on combating the disease that can be easily prevented.
Leanne Lauer's battle with cervical cancer almost killed her.
It was an extremely traumatic experience.
I was overdosed in my chemotherapy treatment and almost didn't make it through that.
It turned her into an advocate, encouraging women to get screened and vaccinated against human papillomavirus, the most common cause of cervical cancer. Doctors say the HPV vaccine is extremely effective, but not enough people are getting it. Canada's cervical cancer diagnosis rate showed a concerning uptick between 2015 and 2019. As of 2021, it plateaued, but it's still alarming, experts say.
Canada is currently facing a silent national health crisis. While many celebrate the advancements in modern medicine, there is an alarming outlier.
The percentage of 17-year-olds who've received at least one dose varies a lot by province. Ontario, New Brunswick, Manitoba have among the lowest rates at less than 70%. Newfoundland and Labrador has the highest at over 90%. The vaccine is given in schools. Most provinces require parents to opt in, but Newfoundland and Labrador gives it to all students unless parents opt out.
It means you're very high likelihood that the child is going to get vaccinated. Any type of opt-in program actually changes that. Papers get lost, people want more information but can't know where to go and get it.
And experts say if vaccination doesn't happen in schools, it could become harder to access, especially since there's a chronic shortage of family doctors who could explain how important it is.
With an established, trusted relationship between a patient and a healthcare provider, that trust goes a long way. So I've seen patients come in and say no initially, and then, I just take a moment to ask why.
Canada had set the goal of 90% of 17-year-olds vaccinated by 2025, with the goal of eliminating cervical cancer by 2040. The Society of Gynecologic Oncology of Canada says the provinces need to cover the cost of the vaccine for more people. So even if you didn't get it in school, you can still get it for free. Peter Cowan, CBC News, Montreal.
As the U.S. gears up for this year's midterm elections, one progressive candidate is taking a pretty unusual approach.
I am your fake Republican candidate for Congressional District 14.
Katie Simpson hits the campaign trail in North Carolina as the fight over gerrymandering heats up. Plus, ICE remains under deep scrutiny in the U.S. But how did the organization get to this point?
This has gotten out of control. We look bad.
The former ICE agent who says he doesn't recognize the agency anymore. The National breaks down the stories shaping our world. Next. This model dog sled, roughly 100 years old, was unveiled today. It is a rare Métis artifact among dozens that the Vatican has returned to Indigenous communities in Canada following years of negotiations with Ottawa. Governor General Mary Simon called it an act that honored reconciliation. Well, new research is revealing more humpback whales are becoming entangled in things like fishing gear, and climate change may be to blame. Tanya Fletcher has more on the study and what experts say can be done about the problem.
Crews cut free a humpback whale caught up in fishing gear off California, the type of rescue that's becoming more common up and down the West Coast. And now research reveals warming ocean water may be increasing that risk. The rise of whale entanglements is directly tied to the temperature of humpback habitats. That's the upshot of a new study from the U.S.-based National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration.
I think this is a key unexpected surprise that climate change is throwing at us.
Experts say the cold water pockets that are ideal for humpbacks to thrive are shrinking, with more frequent marine heat waves forcing the whales closer to shore.
So that warmer water is really compressing the areas where these whales can actually go to find food.
The findings are echoed in British Columbian waters, too.
We do have the same issues here. They're getting caught in the ropes that are used to attach to crab pots. They're getting caught in gill nets.
Before 2014, yearly stats showed fewer than 10 entanglements off the U.S. West Coast. But in 2024, that number spiked to 31 whales. And on average, 3/4 of them don't survive.
Humpbacks, unfortunately, when they get caught in something, they have a tendency to roll in it, and they can wrap them up so tight, and they have an inability to get out of it.
They say the good news is new technology that predicts the likelihood of these encounters based on oceanic forecasts, and that can guide decision making on when and where to close off areas to fishing if there's a higher risk.
One of the exciting parts now is that there are new innovations, for example, ropeless fishing gear that are being used now in these closures. So fishermen are now going back in to these areas that are closed with fishing gear that does not pose the entanglement risk.
And that, he says, will ultimately calm the waters for coexistence between whales and humans. Tanya Fletcher, CBC News, Vancouver.
Now, let's dig a little deeper into the stories shaping our world. Created after 9/11 as a national security tool, the targets of Immigration and Customs Enforcement were clear.
Felons, not families. Criminals, not children.
We'll examine how Donald Trump turned ICE into a mass deportation machine. But first,
I am your fake Republican candidate for Congressional District 14.
A lifelong Democrat, Kate Barr, says gerrymandering in North Carolina has forced her to run in a Republican primary. Katie Simpson hit the campaign trail with Barr to find out what the self-described fake Republican is trying to accomplish.
On a Friday night at a small independent brewery, people come for the pints.
Did you want to open a tab?
And stay for an unusual pitch.
Hi, I'm Kate.
Meet Kate Barr.
I am your fake Republican candidate for Congressional District 14.
Fake Republican. You heard that right. Fake because she's a lifelong Democrat and her campaign is an experiment of sorts.
Here I am running as a progressive Republican.
Kate Barr believes that a Democrat could never win this district because the geographic boundaries are set to include known Republican communities.
I'm running as a Republican because this district is gerrymandered and the real competition is in the primary.
Gerrymandering is when voting maps are adjusted to include specific voters in the hopes of helping one party over another. Barr says in her case it's favoring Republicans. So she's running to be the Republican candidate. Early voting is underway in North Carolina's 14th district.
You can put your ballot in there.
Voters have until March 3rd to decide who they want their Republican candidate to be for the midterm elections. Both Republicans and independents are allowed to vote in this race.
Have you heard of Kate Barr? I have. She's been all over my Instagram feed. I'm kind of excited about it, to be honest. I understand why she's doing what she's doing, and I think it's an interesting way to play the system.
While North Carolina has a long history of gerrymandering by both Republicans and Democrats, it's not unique to this state. Texas has redrawn its maps in a bid to help Republicans. California, in response, came up with a redistricting plan to try to help Democrats.
All of it. I hate all of it. I think we should have fair voting maps everywhere.
Barr is testing an out-of-the-box approach to what she views as a broken system.
We have talked a lot about needing to do things differently, and this is one way we can try something new, something different, and see if it works. I think people like a fight.
Her fight is with Tim Moore, a sitting Republican congressman endorsed by Donald Trump and is a well-known leader in the community. The strange nature of this race has garnered national exposure.
I can't claim a Democrat anymore.
You're not trying to pull a fast one.
Not trying to pull a fast one.
There's also been a wave of online harassment after the conservative broadcaster, Fox News, ran a story about it.
Oh, man. Well, I have a whole new security system at my house. For sure, the death threats came in. But yeah, by and large, you know, my kids are sleeping on my bedroom floor until this is over, is kind of where we are.
That's pretty scary.
Yeah.
Does that change your mind about doing this at all?
If I'm going to continue to live in this country, which I would like to do, I need to be working to make a country my kids can grow up in. And that's not where I am right now.
For all of the concern, the backlash, and the attention, Republican organizers in this community have declared they are not worried about losing this race.
I don't think that it's even within the realm of possibility that she could beat him, as popular as Tim Moore is as a congressman.
What Republicans are worried about, though, possible copycats, similar campaigns in other districts. Kyle Kirby calls it dirty tactics.
no doubt about it that her intention is to be deceptive, and I think it could very well count as election fraud, what she's doing.
The campaign is not sitting well with some Republican voters.
She shouldn't be running as a Republican if she's not a Republican.
I agree. I think that you shouldn't be able to change your party affiliation because you want to run for an office.
And even some Democrats are unsure of Barr's campaign, fearing it will draw support away from other Democratic candidates.
I'm not sure if I'm completely on board with it, but I know that her intentions are good. I'm not sure that it would be my roadmap.
We're on our way to a polling station where Kate Barr is going to spend part of her morning campaigning. Barr was greeted by a handful of her supporters after she cast her own ballot.
Hi, Melissa. It's nice to see you.
How did it feel to vote for yourself with the Republican beside your name?
So weird.
It's also uncharted territory for the people getting behind Barr's campaign.
I'm an unaffiliated voter, and for the very first time in my life, I'm going to be voting in the Republican primary so I can try to help her get on the ticket.
This is considered safe Republican, safe Trump country. What do you think her chances are?
I don't know, but we have to try, right? If we don't try, our chances are zero.
The people here are realistic about Barr's odds, yet they still come out and remain hopeful. Because in this volatile moment in American politics, they're looking to someone to take a risk.
Now, as Katie mentioned, gerrymandering has been happening in a number of states, which means come the fall midterm elections, control of Congress could come down to just a handful of seats. Coming up, a former ICE agent shares his shock over changes in his former agency.
This has gotten out of control. We look bad. We look horrible.
How some say Donald Trump turned a national security tool into a mass deportation machine. Next. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, a central tool in Donald Trump's plan to deport millions of undocumented immigrants.
You can call it whatever the hell you want. They're gone.
Sweeping crackdowns and violent raids, shocking many Americans, including many former ICE agents.
This has become rogue. It's become dangerous.
Jonathan Monpetit looks at how far the agency has traveled from what it was originally designed to do.
The president tasked us with mass deportation, and we are fulfilling that mandate.
The head of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, defending his agency before Congress. But in fulfilling Trump's mandate, ICE has used tactics that have terrorized immigrants and citizens alike, sparking widespread protest. Even some former ICE officers are shocked.
This has become rogue. It's become dangerous. It is clearly undermining the integrity and the professionalism of the agency that I love so dear.
So how much has ICE changed now that Trump is using the agency to carry out his goal of mass deportation?
To understand why ICE was created in the first place, let's go back to the mid-1990s, when Bill Clinton was president.
All Americans, not only in the states most heavily affected, but in every place in this country, are rightly disturbed by the large numbers of illegal aliens entering our country.
Clinton passed a series of immigration reforms that both cut off pathways to citizenship and discouraged undocumented migrants from leaving the U.S. The undocumented population almost doubled over the next 5 years and was around 9 million when 9/11 happened. The attacks were blamed, in part, on failures of the immigration system. So, in 2003, President George W. Bush brought immigration enforcement under a new department, the Department of Homeland Security.
Because terrorism is a global threat, we must have complete control over who and what enters the United States.
Under DHS, Bush created 2 new enforcement agencies, one to control illegal immigration at the border, Customs and Border Protection, and one to control it in the interior, ICE.
One of the problems we had traditionally was the fact that agencies don't always play well with each other. So I believe that was the effort. The effort was to integrate all these agencies into one master agency.
Daniel Vara was a national security lawyer at the old Immigration and Naturalization Service and became one of the first employees at ICE.
The first few days were very exciting because some of us did believe that there was a chance that we were going to get rid of some of the inefficiencies in the old INS.
But even at the outset, migrant rights advocates worried the new agencies would treat immigration mainly as a national security issue.
After 9/11, of course, the United States was very much afraid that it was exposed to outsiders.
Bill Hing is a law professor at the University of San Francisco.
That basically gave Homeland Security license to just really come down hard on the vast majority of people who come to the United States, of course, who do not come here to do us harm and are not criminals.
In 2006, ICE raided a series of meatpacking plants in 6 different states, arresting 1,300 undocumented workers in a single day. It was, at the time, the largest worksite raid by immigration agents in U.S. history. It was also the moment that Hing realized how much power the new agency had been given.
And that's when I knew we are in for it, because that type of activity could take place.
Illegal immigration continued to be a hot-button issue under President Obama. He earned a reputation for hardline enforcement at the border.
Why did you deport 2 million people?
Jorge, we're not going to.
For 6 years you did it. You destroyed many families.
Jorge,
they called you deporter in chief.
You called me deporter in chief. I did not.
Obama also increased ICE's budget for interior enforcement, but he narrowed who the agency targeted for deportation.
Felons, not families. Criminals, not children. Gang members, not a mom who's working hard to provide for her kids.
For Obama, that was a better use of ICE's resources than mass deportation.
Mass deportation would be both impossible and contrary to our character.
But in 2016, Trump was elected on a promise to do just that.
And you can call it deported if you want. The press doesn't like that term. You can call it whatever the hell you want. They're gone.
At ICE, the orders changed. Gone was Obama's targeted approach to immigration enforcement.
That was the theme of the Trump administration was everyone's at play.
Darius Reeves headed ICE field offices under both the Obama and Trump administrations.
Everyone became, that's the main thing, everyone. You can arrest any and everyone now.
But Trump didn't manage to increase deportations much in his first term. He faced 2 problems. The first was infrastructure.
Everyone can't be brought in because ICE doesn't have the infrastructure. We never had the infrastructure to house multiple people. Nowhere. We don't even have the infrastructure to remove 1 million people a year.
The second problem was an overloaded immigration system, which meant due process slowed deportation efforts.
The real problem with enforcing immigration law, we have a kind of a saying, if you're immigration enforcement, the case is never over till the alien wins.
Vara is now in private practice and sits on the board of an influential think tank that lobbies for lower immigration.
I did one case that it took 8 years to get to a final decision. And in the immigration context, when you're dealing with millions of people, that's absurd. You'll never accomplish the mission if that's the way the system works. So I think that what the Trump administration did in the first term is they pushed the issue. I think they realized some of what the real problem was, but because he didn't get in a second term, it got delayed in terms of what the fix was going to be.
When Trump returned to power last year, he again promised mass deportation.
We're going to have the largest deportation in the history of our country.
And this time, he appears determined to avoid the legal obstacles that slowed his first-term deportation efforts. ICE has been given ambitious targets.
We are looking to set a goal of a minimum
of 3,000 arrests for ICE every day, and President Trump is going to keep pushing to get that number up higher each and every single day.
To meet these goals, ICE agents have been conducting aggressive enforcement operations around the country, in places like Los Angeles, Chicago, and Minneapolis. Most of the people it's rounding up don't have criminal convictions. And legal observers say the agency is routinely ignoring the laws that once held it in check.
Last month, we watched federal agents break into homes without judicial warrants in violation of the Fourth Amendment, instructions they received directly from headquarters. Last year, they deported hundreds to a foreign prison with no day in court in violation of the Fifth Amendment.
To fix the infrastructure issue, Trump engineered a staggering budget increase for ICE. The agency says it is using $38 billion of that money to buy dozens of warehouses that it will turn into a massive network of detention centers. ICE is also spending billions chartering deportation flights. Billions more have been earmarked for hiring and equipping thousands of new agents. ICE is now better funded than most militaries in the world, including those of Turkey, Spain, and Iran. Bill Hing once thought mass deportation was an impossible project for ICE. But now, he's not so sure.
I don't think they're going to deport 1 million people a year, but hundreds of thousands, yes, they're doing that. And they're doing it without warrants. And unless the Supreme Court steps in to stop this activity, I do think that what we're going to witness is going to be mind-boggling.
Reeves retired from ICE last year. He says he doesn't recognize the agency he spent 2 decades serving.
And I took pride in that. And I just don't know what's going on with my agency. The leadership now, why are you not standing up? You know, better yet, do the right thing and retire. Walk away from this. This has gotten out of control. We look bad. We look horrible.
A federal judge ruled Wednesday afternoon that the Trump administration policy allowing the rapid deportation of migrants to countries other than their own is unlawful. But he also paused the ruling for 15 days in case the White House wants to appeal. Well, coming up, a cat becomes very cool online because this cat is not like other cats.
Dobby is certainly the most unique cat I've ever met.
The story behind his extra set of ears. Next, in our moment. This little one is Dobby, a 7-month-old kitten in Pelham, Alabama. And you may have noticed, if you look very carefully, he has an extra set of ears. So Stephanie Brown, Dobby's foster owner, says he was born with an extremely rare genetic mutation causing him to have 4 ears. So how could he not be the moment?
Hey, Dobby. Dobby is certainly the most unique cat I've ever met. As soon as I saw him and his adorable extra set of ears, I reached out immediately and asked if I could have the pleasure of fostering him. He has his regular 2 ears, and then in front of that, he has 2 smaller ears that are really more flaps than anything. It's almost like they're backwards, where the fur is on the front of them. It's one of those genetic mutations. They don't affect his hearing at all. I have seen another cat, through social media that I have followed that happens to have the 4 ears. I knew it was possible, but I never thought I'd have the opportunity of meeting one in person and getting to foster them. They're very unique. He's very much a gentleman.
And what's this, you guys? Can we make some progress?
Very sweet with my daughter and getting along, for the most part, with the other cats in the house. So many people have fallen in love with him. He's brought smiles across the world.
Yeah, he's pretty great. And listen, so she's fostered over 130 cats over 6 years and says there have been so many applications for people to adopt Dobby that they've had to close the applications. From all of us at The National, thanks for being with us. I'm Adrienne Arsenault. Take care.